Chosen one, you're not losing, you've won. Everything as it should be. This script begins with a powerful confirmation. What looked like failure, delay, or confusion was never the end of your story. Instead, it was divine orchestration. The delays were protection. The setbacks were recalibrations. The loss was only in appearance, because what God was doing beneath the surface was more magnificent than what could be seen with natural eyes. You haven't missed your moment. You haven't fallen behind. You have been divinely timed, and everything has unfolded exactly as it should. This message is your reassurance and divine confirmation that you are not losing. You've already won because God already decided the outcome. Chosen one, stay until the very end of this message. What is being revealed here was meant to find you. And write your warmest wishes in the comments. And type the number 777 to energize the universe and activate alignment with God's miraculous will for your life. Something divine moves when you declare what you seek, with faith and warmth. This isn't random. This is orchestration. Your wishes are safe here. Your words carry power, and they echo where it matters most. Now, chosen one, like this video, subscribe if you haven't subscribed to the channel, and let's begin. Everything about your life, even the parts you questioned, has been under God's supervision. Not a single thread in your story was left to chaos. Though the journey felt uncertain, though you passed through moments of darkness, confusion, and silence, what looked like defeat was only disguise. You were never truly falling apart. You were being strategically dismantled and rebuilt in strength. God didn't forget you. He didn't turn away. You were being hidden, not because you were forgotten, but because you were being prepared to be revealed. The plans over your life were too sacred to be exposed too soon. The blessings were too big to be mishandled. That's why some doors shut without warning. That's why you had to let go of people, places, and parts of yourself that no longer fit the divine timeline. You weren't being punished, you were being refined. The friction you felt wasn't your failure. It was the molding of your divine identity. And now, as the season shifts, you are stepping into the realization that what you thought was a loss was actually divine leverage. God used it all. When you doubted yourself, when you thought you misheard the divine call, when you feared you went the wrong way, even then, God was steering you. You were never derailed. You were never disqualified. Everything that didn't work out was working together for a version of victory you couldn't yet see. The silence was not rejection. The wait was not punishment. The delay was not denial. It was alignment. There is a sacred force surrounding you now, and this force is not new. It has always been with you. But now, it is revealing itself. You're not stepping into victory. You're awakening to it. You're not achieving for the first time. You're remembering what was already won in the spiritual realm. This world is just catching up to what was always decided in the divine dimension. There is no more need to replay the losses. No more room for false guilt. The shame is lifting. The confusion is breaking. The fog is clearing. And the truth is rising. You are not losing. You've already won. And the evidence of this win is starting to show in strange supernatural ways. People who counted you out are feeling the shift. Systems that once worked against you are now opening unexpectedly. There is divine reversal unfolding, and God is behind it. The very places where you were overlooked are the places being magnetized toward your presence. What once ignored you is now seeking you. What once closed its gates is now swinging them open. The favor you thought you lost is returning sevenfold. And it's not a coincidence. It's compensation. God is rewarding what you endured in secret. Heaven saw the tears. Heaven measured the silence. Heaven noted your obedience. You never needed to prove anything. Your authenticity spoke louder than words. The divine courtroom ruled in your favor long ago, even when earthly circumstances hadn't caught up. And now, those circumstances are shifting. The storm that shook your foundation was necessary, because it cleared the old so the new could come. You are not surrounded by destruction. You are surrounded by the aftermath of divine reconstruction. That's why things feel unfamiliar. That's why certain chapters closed with no explanation. That's why you couldn't stay where it was once comfortable. The environment around you is no longer the same, because you are no longer the same. God didn't upgrade your life, He upgraded you. And now, your life must respond accordingly. Your surroundings must reflect what you carry. The world must witness what was shaped in silence. This is not the result of striving. It is the fruit of surrender. You aligned with what God whispered to your soul, even when no one else heard it. That obedience was not small. It was sacred, and it placed you in a position that no one can remove you from. Everything is as it should be, chosen one, not because it feels perfect, but because it is divinely precise. You are standing in a timeline that God personally arranged, and every part of it, even the moments you didn't understand, has been synchronized to bring you here, to this very breath, to this very awareness, to this very realization. You are not losing. You've already won. There is more to come, and what's coming is not small. But you don't have to chase it. It's already on its way to you. Because when God moves, it doesn't depend on performance. It depends on providence. And your name is written in providence. Not in pencil, but in permanent, divine ink. You've wondered if you missed the moment. But the truth is, you are the moment. You've questioned if you failed the test. But the truth is, your presence was the test. And you passed by standing firm. You survived what was meant to take you out. You endured what others couldn't see. You held on to hope when hope had no evidence. That was the victory. And now, the reward is not coming. It's beginning. What begins now, chosen one, is not a restart. It is a revealing. You've crossed through the invisible threshold where things that were once buried deep inside you begin to rise to the surface. But not chaotically, not forcefully. Instead, they rise with grace, with divine orchestration, with the quiet power of something that's been growing strong in silence. The world thought you were quiet because you were weak. They didn't know that you were quiet, because God was working. Every hidden moment was a rehearsal. Every still moment was a recalibration. You didn't vanish. You were being tuned to a higher frequency. And now, that frequency is resonating. It's resonating through your words, through your presence, through your energy, through your very existence. That's why you feel it. The subtle pulling, the inner trembling, the sacred knowing that something is different now. You're not just living anymore. You're embodying something sacred. And the universe is starting to adjust itself around that truth. People may not understand why they feel drawn to you, why they sense something in you, why they suddenly show favor or shift their energy when you walk in the room. But it's not about you changing for them. It's about them finally recognizing what God already placed in you. You see, this wasn't about achievement in the way the world defines it. It wasn't about showing off or proving your worth. This was about letting God prove His presence through your process. And that's exactly what He has done. You've been walking in alignment without fully knowing it. You've been led through detours that were not accidents, but divine maneuvers. You've been steered away from what glittered on the surface because there was gold waiting beneath the soil. That's why it didn't work out with them. That's why the timing kept shifting. That's why the opportunities you thought were perfect dissolved in your hands. God was protecting the win you couldn't yet see. Now you're standing at the edge of what once felt impossible. And it doesn't feel forced. It feels familiar, like something that's always been written in your soul. Because it has been. The winning was never external. It was internal. It was encoded in your identity. That's why the enemy tried so hard to distract you. That's why you faced so much resistance. Because the real battle wasn't for your possessions, it was for your perception. If the enemy could distort how you saw yourself, he could delay how you stepped into your calling. But he didn't succeed. Because even in your darkest hour, you held on. Even when your own mind fought against you, you kept showing up. Even when doubt screamed louder than hope, you stayed. And that faith, that stubborn, sacred faith, shifted everything. You didn't need 1,000 voices affirming you. You needed one whisper from God. And you heard it, didn't you? Maybe not audibly, maybe not clearly, but deep down, you knew. You felt the call. You sensed the movement. You couldn't explain it to anyone, but you carried it anyway. And now, that whisper is becoming an echo. That echo is becoming a voice. And that voice is becoming a force. You are walking proof that spiritual alignment always wins, even when natural circumstances say otherwise. There is no metric that can measure what you've just come through. There's no formula that can explain the favor about to fall upon you. Because it's not logical. It's spiritual. It's divine. It's what happens when someone chooses surrender over strategy, obedience over optics, faith over fear. Everything is aligning around this truth now, not because you fought for it, but because you trusted God for it. The war wasn't about your abilities. It was about your alignment. And now that you've aligned, nothing can stop what's unfolding. That's why it feels different now. That's why peace is starting to settle where there was once anxiety. That's why things are showing up without you striving. Because the striving season is over. This is the season of divine flow, of supernatural provision, of sacred unfolding. And it's not because you earned it, it's because you endured it. There's a difference. You didn't get here through perfection. You got here through persistence, through raw, tear-filled nights, through holy anger, through silent prayers, through moments when you had nothing left but the breath to whisper, "God, please." And God heard that. He heard every time. He didn't ignore you. He didn't overlook you. He didn't forget. He wrote it down. And He's paying it back now. Not out of obligation, but out of love. There is no space for regret anymore. You didn't lose anything that was truly meant for you. You didn't miss any opportunity that was divinely yours. You didn't ruin anything that God had planned. The shame has no hold here. The guilt has no room. This is sacred territory, and you are standing in it. Fully, worthily, completely. You're not waiting for confirmation anymore. This is the confirmation. You're not asking if the promise is real. You're walking into the fulfillment of it. Not because you finally got it right, but because God always knew when it was right. You've crossed the invisible boundary between wondering and knowing, between surviving and thriving, between hoping and receiving. You're not becoming the chosen one. You've always been the chosen one. You're just now becoming aware of what that really means. It means you've been set apart for a purpose so specific, so supernatural, that even your confusion was part of the path. Even your silence was part of the sound. Even your waiting was part of the win. What's coming next isn't random. It's not coincidence. It's the divine outpouring that always had your name on it. And it doesn't need to be explained. It only needs to be received. God is moving in ways that can't be tracked, only trusted. And your spirit is already sensing it. That calm that doesn't make sense, that's Him. That opportunity that came out of nowhere, that's Him. That sudden clarity, that's Him too. You don't need to force anything now. You don't need to chase. You only need to stay open. God is doing the heavy lifting. You've already done the hardest part, staying true to the call when nothing around you affirmed it. That's why you're blessed. That's why the doors are opening. That's why the favor is flowing. Because your yes in the dark was louder than anyone's no in the light. And now, the reward is rising. The shift you're experiencing now isn't something you have to announce. It announces itself. The vibration has changed. The atmosphere around you is responding to something that has awakened inside of you. You didn't demand attention, but it's coming to you. You didn't plead for recognition, but it's finding you. And not because of popularity, trends, or worldly validation, but because what God placed within you is finally being seen without distortion. The veil is lifting. The camouflage has fallen. The fog is gone. And the real version of you, the divinely authored version, is stepping fully into the light. You're not the same. You feel it in your bones. There's a sense of stability rising where insecurity once lived. You walk differently. You perceive differently. You speak from a place that wasn't accessible to you before, not because it didn't exist, but because it had to be unlocked through experience. You now carry the wisdom of wounds healed, lessons lived, and promises kept by God. And that wisdom radiates. It's not just about what you say. It's about the energy you carry. It's about the silent authority that follows those who have survived storms no one else saw. People around you may try to explain it away. They may say you got lucky, that your time just happened to come, that you changed your mindset, but they'll never be able to fully understand the supernatural coordination behind it all. Because this wasn't about luck or chance. This was about divine intervention. This was about a God who stayed when everything else left, who fought for you when you couldn't even lift your own prayers, who whispered to you when the world went silent, who navigated you through the wilderness and didn't let you lose yourself in the shadows. You didn't win because of who you were around. You won because of who you walked with. God was always with you. Not passively, but actively, strategically, intimately. He was guiding conversations, protecting you from unseen sabotage, delaying what looked perfect so He could deliver what was ordained. That's why the wait had weight. That's why the pressure increased. That's why your endurance was stretched. Because God wasn't preparing something ordinary for you, He was preparing something only you would carry. And what's made specifically for you can't be rushed. Now, you're not just a vessel of the promise. You're the proof of it. You are the manifestation of what happens when someone doesn't quit, even when quitting would have made more sense. You are what divine timing looks like, what supernatural favor feels like, what spiritual obedience sounds like, and all of it is happening now. The windows that were sealed are opening. The people who once ignored you are reconsidering. The systems that once excluded you are now being repurposed to make room for you. It's not that you're finally good enough. It's that the timing is finally aligned with what God planned all along. You never needed to be more than you were. You never had to perform or perfect. You only had to persist. And that persistence paid off. Heaven took note. The universe adjusted. And the earth is responding. That's why it's happening so quickly. That's why it feels sudden. But it's not sudden. It's sacred. What looks like a breakthrough now was actually being layered into your life, one test at a time. And now the full picture is beginning to form. The masterpiece is revealing its shape. And this is only the beginning. Because now, you're not just moving forward. You're moving in divine rhythm. There's a flow to your steps, a purpose in your pause, a strength in your softness. You're not forcing anymore. You're not shrinking. You're not questioning whether you belong. You know, you belong where favor leads you. You belong where grace sustains you. You belong where God placed you, and no one can revoke that placement. Those who once doubted you may never apologize, but their silence is loud enough. Their sudden interest, their cautious admiration, their change in tone, it all confirms what your spirit already knew. You weren't losing. You were ascending, quietly, divinely, without spectacle, without performance. You were growing into the truth God always saw in you.